Welcome everybody back to Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast in our Sea of Monsters era. All aboard toot toot, I believe is what we decided to say. We have the writer of episode 203 in the house today. Tamara Becher-Wilkinson is with us. You don't want to miss this. Stick around. All right, Tamara, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Are you a frequent podcast guest? Have you done this a lot in your life?
No. Hence, I'm thrilled to be invited.
Oh, yay.
I think maybe I've done one other podcast, maybe.
Oh, we are so excited to have you. We feel that having the writers and the showrunners on this podcast is like the ultimate form. It's like our final evolution as a show, because that is at the time where we can like really talk about the story and the questions that we have and the things that have come up for us in our like 18 watches of this episode and talking about it amongst ourselves. It's very special and exciting for us to be at our like final evolution of Seaweed Brain, to have you here on the episode with us today.
Oh, that's very kind of you. And as a lifelong fangirl of all kinds of things, I get how cool it is to be able to sort of hear from the people that make this stuff. So this is maybe my version of paying it forward to all of the people who have made stuff before me.
That is so sweet. Yes, thank you so much for paying it forward to us. We gladly receive that. And if any of us ever make anything cool, we will pay it forward once again.
There you go.
We are really excited to talk about this episode in particular because we are lifelong Luke understanders, lifelong Luke campaigners. And in our analysis of this episode, we've been referring to it as the prophecy episode, aka the Great Epic Monologues episode, aka In Defense of Luke Castellan Part 1 episode. So we're looking forward to getting into all of that. But first, will you tell us about your entire life up until this exact moment, how you became a writer, and what inspired you to write for television?
Yes. So let's see. I think I just came out of the womb, basically,
with a typewriter.
With a typewriter. Yeah. No. I just loved TV and movies. It's all I ever wanted to do, is just sit down in front of the television and just watch whatever was on. Just a lifelong, passionate love affair, consensual with movies and TV. And
can we ask you what TV shows were like your go-to sit in front of the TV shows as a kid? Like for me, that was SpongeBob. But I like hearing for people what that was. I feel like it informs your entire like artistic view, what you watched on TV as a kid.
Yeah. Well, there were so many things. And when I was, I'm a Gen X child of the 80s. And so a huge thing for me was Saturday morning cartoons. So, you wake up as early as you can on a Saturday morning. I can't remember what time they would start, but, like around 7, and then you had until noon, and you would get your, Bugs Bunny and Smurfs and Gummy Bears and Dungeons and Dragons and all kinds of crazy things that you would have to sort of like, and there were 3 different networks and everything, all the cartoons were on at the same time. There was none of this on-demand stuff. And so then you had to fight it out with your brother and sister, as I did, between like, if Smurfs was on at the same time as Bugs Bunny and Friends, or, Super Friends, you had to duke it out over, whether you're watching CBS or NBC or whatever.
The good old days.
Good old days, yeah. But as I got older, I always loved like sitcoms growing up. So I loved like Different Strokes and Silver Spoons. And I also loved like, I'm blanking on the name. Good Times. Was a huge Good Times fan. Jeffersons, Three's Company. And then as I got older, the show that I think was a really huge influence on me and my sense of humor, and my taste in general, was Roseanne.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yeah. Roseanne. And what was so cool to me about Roseanne is that it was the one show I watched that really sort of reflected my family more than anything, in the sense that it was a working class family that dealt with, like real struggles, like domestic abuse and a lot of financial troubles, um, and so it was really cool to see that. And aside from that, it had just this really sharp sense of humor that even today I go back and rewatch episodes of it, and it still is as funny to me as it was back then. So that was really a big one. And then just movies in general, just loved all kinds of movies. But the really like important movie in terms of me deciding to become a writer was Terminator 2.
I just rewatched Terminator 2 3 days ago.
Really?
Fresh on the mind. One of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And actually, James Cameron, a lot of us, I think almost all of us, are really big fans in the Percy room.
That is so funny. Daphne recently said to me that if she were to start another podcast, it would be a James Cameron podcast. I'm so sorry to out that fact.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, we have a lot of talks about James Cameron in the room, and a lot of us huge fans.
I am so excited that you said that, because as I was watching Terminator 2 with my brother-in-law, I was like, this is also Percabeth. And I can't wait to find a way to wedge the relationship of the idea of an alien creature, which John Steinberg likes to cite E.T. And I brought up Lilo and Stitch, but there's also Terminator 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger learning how to be a human. That kind of relationship dynamic between person who teaches alien to be human and alien who learns to be human through person that they love and care for. Absolutely excellent trope throughout all of media.
I love that you love Percy so much that is the lens through which you consume all media.
Unfortunately, it's too late now for there to put me any other lenses. I'm stuck like this forever.
Look, you could do a lot worse. But for me, so the movie came out and it was like the early 90s so it was the whole with the T-1000, the morphing thing, brand new, never seen that before. And it just blew my tiny mind, And so I think I saw it, I must have watched it 6 times in the theater, and then went to the bookstore and I found they had a making of Terminator 2 book. Because I'm like, oh, how did they do that? And so I got this book and flipping through, it's got tons and tons and tons of behind the scenes pictures. And that's when, there's these pictures of James Cameron screaming at people to do stuff. And I'm looking at pictures and I'm thinking wait a minute. So this is a job. Being yelled at by James Cameron is a job that I could maybe have one day. And it sort of changed my entire worldview of growing up in Florida and what I could possibly do with my life. And so from that moment on, I decided I'm going to move to Los Angeles where they make the movies, and I am going to become a writer. And so from there, my path was kind of set. I decided to go to film school, which I did at the University of Miami, because, whoever applied got it. It was very easy to get into. It was very small. I think it's very different now, but at the time, kind of teeny tiny one building, they called it the Film Shack. It was the oldest building on the University of Miami campus. And they threw us all in there, and they didn't even have enough film classes to give you a full degree. You had to double major because they only had, and we didn't have a post-production and cinematography. There was one class 3 hours a week that was just called production, and that covered everything.
Yes.
It's very, very different at the time. It's probably very, very different now, but it was very basic. And then from there, so I knew I wanted to move to Los Angeles. I needed to save money. So I worked at a country club, valet parked cars at a country club for
Mm-hmm.
several months, saving up money. And in the meantime, as I was doing that, I had a cousin who was an executive at Fox.
Nice.
On the production side. And so she invited me to stay with her at her house in LA. And so when I moved out, I did. And then the first job that I ever got, the first entertainment job, was as a post PA on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I started in that in season 4 and was there working in various positions. I moved around a little on the show up, through the end. And that was a very, very cool job. But, from there, knew I wanted to write, really hard to get a writing job. Eventually moved over. Marty Noxon was very kind and allowed me to become the script coordinator in the final season. I was terrible at it. I was really, really bad at it. But, I got only slightly better, but it was a great way to really, as a script coordinator, you have a lot of free time. It's sort of like a feast or famine thing. And so I had a lot of free time to write.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I just kept writing, and I worked at DreamWorks for a couple years as a reader, like as a night job, reading scripts. And that was a very cool job to have, and read, maybe like 2 screenplays a night, which was really good. If you, great writing school, read 2 screenplays a night, read 2 a week is a great way to, learn about writing. And then eventually I applied they started running all of these various studios and networks had these talent development programs.
Yes.
And so there was an NBC one at the time. It was called Writers on the Verge. And it was the second year, and not that many people applied to it. And I got in. And so
you are being very humble right now. Just for our listeners, know that she's being humble.
Yeah. Yep. Well, perhaps I'm being humble, but I also know that it is true, because I think back to it and I think like, wow, if I applied 2 years after I did, I don't know that I would have gotten in. Yeah, you're right though. It's never easy to get into one of these programs. So but from there, I eventually was able to get an agent, because at the end of the program, they send your material out to agents. And there was one agent who, he didn't sign me, but he hip pocketed me, meaning that it basically is like, if none of my other clients are good for a thing and I think of you, I'll mention your name.
Yes. Hollywood, baby.
Yeah. But then it's also like, but if you get yourself your own job, I'll take 10% of that. And that's what happened. Because from there, through the program, I had met, they did one class where we did speed dating with executives who were at Universal and Sci-Fi. And that is where I met Tom Lieber, who he worked at, I think, UCP, Universal Cable Productions, as what it was called at the time. And he was a huge Battlestar Galactica fan. And he, not only was he a fan, but that he covered the show. And I was a massive, massive, massive Battlestar fan. And so we went in, and I talked his ear off about Battlestar. And we sort of connected. And then a year later, when they were staffing up a show called Warehouse 13, he and Erica Kinnair, who ran the Writers on the Verge program, thought of me for the show. And it also, it helped that David Simpkins and Jack Kenny, who were the showrunners of Warehouse 13, I had script coordinated for them on another show they did called Book of Daniel years earlier. So it's like all these things sort of came together to help me get that first job.
Yeah. I'm also just stalking your IMDb page right now. And I see that you were also script coordinator for the Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yes.
So how special was that?
that was an unreal full circle moment for me. And I told the story in uh, my origin story of this is why I'm here in that meeting. And I think that definitely helped me to get that job.
Yeah.
And I was just over the moon, couldn't believe that I would have this very, small part to play in this franchise that was so important to me personally. It was very
Yeah.
cool, and there were so many cool people that that worked on it. And getting to work with Josh Friedman, who's just a genius, and so many of the writers on there were so cool. Yeah, a
That's
lot of
so
cool
special.
writers. Yeah,
I can't even imagine.
Ashley Edward Miller was one of them. Yeah, just
Yeah. I'm
unbelievable.
also personally, I'm like a big Daredevil fan, but I feel
Ah,
like the more like appropriate thing to talk to you about is probably Star Wars as far as Percy
oh,
Jackson. Like coming in, into like an established world of lore and like kind of like working within that. We've talked a lot with the author Marco Shiro on our podcast, who has co-written a couple of books with Rick now and has also written a lot of Star Wars books. And so
oh,
we've like
cool.
asked Mark before, like, yeah, like what's it like, kind of breaking in, touching canon, changing canon. Do you feel like there was any like similarities between Star Wars work and this other Disney project that you're now working on?
In a way, yeah, because the approach to story is as serious um, and important as anything else that I've worked on. Just
Mhm.
because the Bad Batch was an animated thing, and just because like Percy is technically a family show or
Mhm.
a show for kids or whatever, none of the storytelling was treated any differently than any other adult show that I've worked on. So I thought that was amazing. But also, like both franchises have this regard for the fan experience, and that uh, I think there's an understanding. And Rick and Becky are very protective of the fan experience.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm, mhm.
and, but in a way that's amazing and additive, you know. And same with, when you work on these Star Wars shows, that they're considerate of the fan experience, and which it sort of like is mind blowing how much there is to keep track of, especially in the Star Wars universe, especially with all the books,
Mm,
and like
mhm.
what's canon and what's
Yeah.
not canon. And it's, but that's why when you are breaking these stories, Star Wars, you do these, they call them story conferences,
Mm.
and you're in a room for 3 days breaking several episodes with other writers, but you're also in there with the director of the episode and like animation
Mm.
team and people who have all this institutional, I mean, there must be like 30 people, whether in the
Wow.
room or on calls or whatever. And so there's a lot of people there making sure that these episodes and characters and all of the experience for the fans remain true to the
Mm.
thing that they love. And we really really try as hard as we can to make sure that people don't get mad, or that, not that they don't get mad, but that it's really about not spoiling it for, because
Mm.
no one wants
Mm,
to have this thing that they love treated in a way that isn't in the spirit of what was
mm.
intended
Yeah.
by George Lucas or by Rick and Becky. And but that's the great thing, is that Rick and Becky are involved, and so
Yeah.
they sign off on everything. Everything is run by them. So
I'm obsessed with George Lucas and Rick and Becky being sort of like two sides of the same coin. I think that's great. I
well,
think Rick would love hearing that. I think that that's so special.
yeah. I mean, like, look, he's created this beloved universe of
Mhm.
characters. You know, so
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
maybe not too far of a stretch.
The last maybe career journey piece that we then have to ask about is about this writer's room, like how you came to be part of the Percy Jackson television team.
So this was like another one of those things where I was sort of attached to it from a couple of different places. And the first place was through Craig Silverstein, who was a writer in season
Ooh,
1.
go blue.
Go Blue.
I also
Yeah.
went to the Michigan Film School.
Oh, did you? Amazing.
Wait, also, I wanted to say as a tangent, I also had a production class that was just 3 hours once a week where they threw us in a room and were like, you should make a movie. So I don't know that there has been that much updating to the film school process since you were there. Just 3 hours on a
so
Friday
maybe
called
not.
production. Yeah.
Look, I mean, yeah, the pros and cons of film school are it's expensive, but you get to make a movie, and it's a lot cheaper to make a movie while you're in film school and have access to all that equipment and manpower than it is when you get out.
Definitely.
But, like all the practical stuff, you're really, I think that the practical things I learned in film school were how to wrap a cable and that a clothespin is called a C47. and that's about it.
Worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it because wrapping a cable, there are a lot of cables on a film set.
Yeah.
A lot of cables.
So Craig, as I mentioned, I was a script coordinator and I, through the Buffy universe, knew Tim Minear and had done some of his shows. And so he was working with Craig on, I think it maybe was his first show called Standoff that he created. And so I knew Craig as a script coordinator, but also my manager is Jeremy Bell, who is one of the executive producers on the show, Percy Jackson. And
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I think you've heard of it. And and so I guess there were maybe some warm, fuzzy feelings. And when Jeremy brought me up to him, and then, he read my material and liked it. And so I had a meeting with him. And then the next day I had a meeting with him and Rick, which is like crazy. I was very starstruck because, I have a now 13-year-old daughter, but we in our house were huge fans of the books. We listened to all the audiobooks, and she became a huge fan of just Greek mythology in general, to the point where, she would be like practicing writing the Greek alphabet, just for fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you raised a fangirl.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And, but I had told Rick this story about how we were on vacation with family friends in England, and we were on like a 5-hour bus ride to a spa town in Scotland. And so I was sitting in the back with one of their kids, and for 5 hours I hadn't heard of Percy Jackson yet because my daughter was still very little, and she basically told me the story of all, I think there were 4 books at the time. And,
wow.
And I was riveted. It was awesome. So I was a fan going into these meetings, but it was a crazy, the day that I had that meeting with Rick and Craig, we actually had to reschedule it because I logged on to the call and Craig comes on and he is looking, like ashen, and that was the morning that he, that Lance Reddick had died. So we had to reschedule. Yeah. Which was crazy. And, so tragic. A huge fan of his, huge fan of The Wire, huge fan of Oz. And that was horrible loss for the show, but, Courtney B. Vance could do a lot worse. Amazing. Really filled the very big shoes of Lance Reddick. So
definitely. It feels so special to have someone like a friend take that on. Yeah. We previous to now have only ever had one other writer, if you don't include John Steinberg, on the show, which is Daphne. And that was a long time ago. So I think it'd be exciting for our listeners and for me personally to hear a little bit about the structure of the Percy Jackson writers room. Like, we know, for example, that this was sort of like your episode as 203. This was written by you. So how do you get to the point of being like, this one is mine? From, pitching, outlining, writing it, and then that is like your baby?
In a way, though, TV writing, I think the majority of shows really is a collaborative process. And that is very, very true on this show. So even though my name is on it, like it is, there are pieces of everybody from our room in the episode. And the way that Craig was running the writer's room was that he had assigned at the time, you see, it was Shay and Sarah and I. And so he assigned each of us an episode. Well, actually, there were 2 episodes already that were written prior to the strike. So we were coming in after the strike.
Oh, right.
And there was a, what do you call it? A mini room before the strike. So I actually, oh my God, it's all coming back to me now.
I remember this too. I don't know if I was supposed to know this, but I remember that there was a season 2 mini room happening before, and then so it was like tapping back into it afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, I really hope that wasn't. No, I don't think it's a secret. No, I had met with Craig before the strike about maybe coming into the mini room. And then I think the decision was made that they were going to wait for the official pickup before they brought in more writers. So there was already like a season 2 document. The first 2 episodes were written. And so Craig had assigned me episode 3 and Shay, I can't remember if Shay is 4 or 5. I think Sarah was 4.
I think Shay's 4.
Oh, Shay's 4.
Yeah.
And then Sarah 5. And then he told us that he gave us like a week and said, everyone go into your office and, put together like a loose structure of what your hopes and dreams for this episode.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And so we took that week and I was first up. When I was ready, we have all these whiteboards in our writer's room, and I put my structure up on the whiteboard, and I pitched it out to everybody, and there were things that I thought, oh, this is cool, and this is going to be fun, and everybody's going to dig this. And then, Craig listened to it very respectfully and then went, okay, take it all down. No, he didn't say that, but he took it all down, but it was a good exercise in just really immersing yourself in, and really getting to know the chapters that your episode was based on.
So there were like a specific, like, oh, it's roughly this chapter to this chapter that we need to like cover ground wise in this episode.
Yeah, because Sarah and Craig, and I believe Daphne was part of that mini room. Actually, I think, and even like Rick maybe had even hammered out the document that was sort of the template for season 2. So you knew like where your episode needed to begin and end. And then from there, you just start hammering away at the episode and figuring out, like what are the big emotional arcs for Percy for the episode. Percy has to drive everything, but it was also a very big Annabeth season, thinking about Annabeth's and evolution and where she's at. And for this episode in particular, the prophecy, the decision was made because I think in the books, Percy doesn't know the prophecy until way late.
Yeah. And Annabeth also already knows the prophecy.
Yes.
By the time Percy shows up in book 1.
Yes. And so figuring out, like when that information comes out was really key. But also like another huge thing for this episode in particular, I guess I'm getting into the details of this
It's
episode
time.
in particular.
I was going to
and
say
not process,
it's time.
but-
Yes.
Okay.
It's time to discuss the episode. We have specific questions.
Yeah. Because it's interesting too, like, writers have different processes in how they connect to episodes or how they need to, get immersed in the episode. And I feel like I'm definitely like a character person. Like I need to understand, and I'm sure a lot of writers think this way. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but definitely like need to understand, what does Percy want and what does he need, and the same for all the characters.
Want and need.
Yeah. What does he want? What does he need? Where does he need to be by the end of this episode to set him up for the next episode? Or where is he on his journey in this episode? And so, in a lot of ways, in thinking about this episode, a lot of it was about doubt, like sowing seeds of doubt and about sort of rectifying doubt. And so like, Percy finding out at the end that, that
he's going to be a weapon.
There's the fear that Chiron fears that he could be a weapon is a huge revelation for him, because he's only ever thought of himself as not that, the opposite of that.
Yes.
But then also for Annabeth, when the thing that Luke says about Thalia, you didn't know her like I knew her, sows this seed of, oh my God, I did only know her for 2 months. And maybe everything that Luke is saying about her here was right. And then finally you've got Clarice, who's on her own sort of cruise, who is doubting herself and her ability to lead. And all of the stuff that her father says to the crew of the undead. I mean, it's patronizing and, does not set her up for success. And so you've got her there doubting her ability to lead this crew. But, by the end, all of the things, I think what sort of the directive that Craig gave me in writing her rousing speech at the end was, these are things that she's really just saying to herself.
Yes, that's what we said. That is her way into finding a way to lead, was by basically giving herself a pep talk, but to these other people, like, which is so fitting for her when she is like eternally lonely, at least for now, and hopefully will not be by the end of this season.
Yeah, no, and it's also such a great Clarice arc for the season too.
Yes. Speaking of Clarice,
the
fact that this episode sort of like knocks our socks off right away by her, 1, beheading the Oracle, and then 2, delivering her own prophecy, and then for book fans, 3, not hearing the end of the prophecy, was really what shook me. Like in that series of events, I was like, wait a second, and fail, and that's it. Watching this episode, I couldn't tell if it was because she had like run out of the attic that she didn't hear the rest, or if it's that she did hear the rest, but she was like stuck on, fixated and spiraling on this and fail thing. And both of these would make sense. But can you tell us about like when that decision came in to like stop the revealing of the Sea of Monsters prophecy at and fail?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was written in the script early on, but I think we did cut out of it. And there were more scenes, though I don't know if they got cut before production or not, but it was definitely written where you see her coming out of the big house. And there was a whole other scene where Clarice is given the quest, or that she is selecting her quest mates and thinking about picking Chris Rodriguez to go with her. And ultimately her choosing to just go on her own. But yeah, I mean, that is definitely the idea about and fail. But the other thing is that's weighing on her is, without friends, because, Clarice doesn't really have too many friends. And there was a piece in her, this got cut early on because I think it was too goofy. But when Clarice is giving the speech at the end of the episode, there was like an awkward moment in it where she's like, yeah, and then no one would have to sit with you at lunch because they're afraid of you and not because they really don't like you. Kind of something like that.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was too goofy.
Too on the nose.
Yeah. I admittedly, I have broad tendencies, and
Oh, I don't know whether I want to go to broad tendencies or prophecy next, but I think I'm going to stay on prophecy for a second.
Okay.
The choice to talk about the great prophecy in the season was obviously a big one, but as we were watching this episode, especially the first time we watched it through, we were like, oh my God, is Luke about to say the great prophecy? We were like, whoa, this could happen right now in the Admiralty suite. He could drop it, and he didn't. And we can think of many reasons why he would make that choice not to say it in that moment. Maybe he doesn't know it. Maybe he's like, I'm going to keep that knowledge weapon for myself, whatever. But was there ever a version in which he did deliver the prophecy in this moment? Or is that kind of always something that is like, like down the line, like we're not there yet?
I think that there was never a moment where he delivered that information, but what it did, there was a version of it, I think, at some point. I may be misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure there was a point where Annabeth tells him more of the prophecy. But I think what had happened was we realized at the end that if she knew the exact wording and told him the exact prophecy, then moving forward, his whole focus for the rest of the season would be, oh my God, I'm going to die after I'm 16.
Yeah.
And so I think that felt like that would be sort of pushing his arc in the wrong direction. And so we needed to pull back on that.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah.
We're like, great choice. We're like,
was,
well, good episode. We liked it.
Yeah, thanks. But Craig, I mean, that's Craig Silverstein steering the ship in a really smart way.
Okay, speaking of steering the ship.
Yeah, one of the things that we really were looking for in season 1 and loved seeing in this episode is the cruise ship aspect, that kind of hokey interface between the most sort of open symbols of like Americana modernity, like the cruise ship is such a nexus of like a thing you would see in a commercial, I guess, with the Last Dragonian Giants and the huge like training set underneath the Princess Andromeda with all of these different monsters and demigods fighting together. I guess I have so many questions about this. Maybe the first thing to ask about is how much of what the Princess Andromeda ended up feeling like was part of the writerly discussions and like got put into script. Things like the actual cruise ship on the TV screen video,
our favorite part of the episode.
Where you have somebody explaining Kronos's like plan to everybody, and you see those images of people hanging out on the decks, and also the Last Dragonian Giants bowling and stuff,
also
like
sushi buffet.
Oh man! So it's a good example of there's this expression. There are a lot of variations of this expression in writers' rooms and in Hollywood. But it's Gone with the Wind in the morning, Dukes of Hazzard at night. Do you guys familiar with the show Dukes of Hazzard?
I don't think we are. Please explain out for us.
So, it's a sort of, it's a show that's also set in the Deep South. It doesn't matter what it's about, but it's the upshot of it is it's a TV show that is sort of made on a budget. Whereas Gone with the Wind is this beautiful, sweeping epic, cost $1 bajillion. And so what the expression means is that when you start writing a script, you sort of keep production stuff in mind, but you have all these like lofty goals and you have all these ideas about things that you want to do and hopes and dreams for the episode. And then when you get into production and a line producer looks at it and first ADs look at it, and then reality sets in and they're like, okay, here's what we can afford to do and here's what we have time to do. So I think, because this actually happened after our writer's room was done. So that incredible video was the brainchild of Craig and probably Albert Kim also.
Nice.
And so initially there was so much more cruise ship stuff where like I had written scenes with the Laestrygonians bowling. I had written scenes, where when they first climb onto the ship, it was more of a to-do. So it was more of like, there were more shots of getting the viewers oriented on the cruise ship. So just seeing this big, beautiful thing. And there was a family I had written where there's a mother and a father and a son and a daughter. And she's like, do you kids know the story of the Princess Andromeda? I had 2 versions of this. And so she's telling the story of Andromeda, but it's all wrong. And it's all like her version of Princess Andromeda is from the movie Clash of the Titans.
No way.
Yeah. But then the son is like, nuh-uh, ma. And then he tells his version of Princess Andromeda, but it's really the story of Queen Amidala. Yeah. But
my God. Release the drafts. I can't wait for the coffee table book where we get like concept art and cut scenes from episode drafts.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Really, like the one reason I wanted to do this podcast is so that those 2 things, because I was so like, proud of I thought it was so delightful. But look, now watching the episode and not seeing it there, I'm like, yeah, that stuff does not fit in this episode. Because look, like, I want to hear some lady from South Florida talking about Harry Hamlin? I do. But no, I want to see Percy, and Annabeth and Tyson. So I get why it didn't.
It's hard with 40 minutes. It is. If we had 60 minutes, then there'd be plenty of time.
Yes.
But that
costs so enjoyed that
gajillion more dollars.
That's so. I had no idea where you were going when you were starting to describe this. Also, I was like, oh, are we going to get the story of Princess Andromeda from like the sea monster's perspective? Because we're on the Titan ship.
No. And then Harry Hamlin frees her, saves her from the Kraken.
See,
and then they get married.
You can come back on the podcast, and what we'll do is we'll do a cold reading of the
scene.
Right? We'll just get the characters, and we'll do a cold read
of all my goofy cutscenes.
Yeah, we really can't say enough positive things though about this episode and the way that there is that. Like, even though they don't have that exact scene, we do get the sense of humor and the sense of the juxtaposition between the modern and the mythological that we like. That is the books. That is like what the books are known for. It was so great to like really feel that tangibly in this episode on the cruise ship when it like is the perfect time to like tap into that.
I don't know whose idea this was, but like my favorite thing in the episode is when you see one of the Laestrygonians just steal a tower of lollipops.
Yes.
I'm like, it's so good. I wish I thought of it. But
I think
all
the
that
bowling
is to say,
great.
The bowling is amazing.
Yeah.
But all of this is to say is that, so in the scene where when they're first in the room and Tyson's saying like, I smell something. And once he says monsters, then the original scene is Annabeth and Percy, they look out the window and it's supposed to look over like the huge concourse of the cruise ship. And there's, supposed to look around and see like there's all kinds of monsters on there, so they would have seen like the whole thing was infested. But of course, that is a very expensive thing.
Yeah.
And also, movie magic, we weren't really on a cruise ship. So concourse did not exist.
Right. That's a big set. That's a big set ask. Yeah.
Yeah. But then like the cool thing is like then Craig and probably Albert too, like there's this opportunity to do something really fun and amazing and create this the video. So
right. Yes. And the video, I think definitely it was great. It accomplished what it needed to accomplish, which was the sense of what the hell's going on here without $1 million of VFX going into Cynthian Dracene women, etc. Another thing that we had been talking about on the subject of like the fact that it is kind of like a change, if you could call it that, of like there's fewer monsters on the ship and that is expensive. But instead of the monsters and the dragon women, we get Allison. And we get Allison as like the true introduction to her character in this episode. We get her as this like source of violence and like hot-headed revolutionary, I'm ready to fight energy, so that we can have Luke the politicker and Luke the campaign speecher, Luke running for mayor and I'm voting for him. How much I mean, knowing that this is like an original character that was probably discussed at length as a group, like how much did you get to like really go into like characterizing Allison as we get to know her in this episode?
Well, Allison was a Craig creation who we see in the first episode. And so, I mean, the actress is really great.
Yes, Beatrice is
really
great.
loved her. And so she just like gave you so much in that first episode. You really got a good sense of who she is, and just from what Craig had put on the page, you got a really great sense of that this was a lieutenant in Luke's army. And that you're 100% right, that because he had this bulldog at his disposal, that left him to be able to sort of be the good cop in all of this and be able to, sort of calmly and logically make his case about things. And this was sort of an interesting thing that happened while we were breaking this episode, is that we knew that the case that Luke made had to be very compelling, and that Percy had to sort of feel torn, and so as I was writing it, the case became almost too compelling. And so then
this is what I love to hear.
Questions, of like, wait, should we be Team Luke? It got to the point where we're like, okay, we have to like change it some because it's too strong. But the thing that I always kept coming back to is, and the thing that anytime anyone would say, but Luke's argument, how do you combat Luke's argument? Yes. And I always come back to the thing that he said about, they're going to kill campers. He doesn't explicitly say it, but it's like join or die. Yeah. And if he's willing to, if that is the price of not joining his cause, then that is not a cause that you want to join.
Join or die. That's a really helpful like touchstone for us as we also try to imagine why Luke isn't right.
But he never says it explicitly. He's like, the smart ones will see. Yeah.
Yes. That was what we kept picking up on. Like I kept rewatching that scene and being like, what is he actually saying? Like, how much is he actually at fault for saying? Like, there is this idea, and we know as book readers that the golden age of Kronos obviously wasn't kind to mortals. And Annabeth sort of brings that up, but that's also not something that we really hear out of Luke's mouth, like, screw them mortals, we're going to put them in chains. We don't really hear him say that. So at this point, I'm like, well, so it's like Luke is gonna like maybe overlook the mortals, but you guys are still gonna overlook the monsters. Like, where do we stand on this children of the gods statement?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is one of the most powerful arguments that he makes, two things in this episode in terms of Percy, who you see in the first episode that Percy is not at all thrilled that his brother is this sort of Cyclops, and that he has his own sort of biases against monsters. And then he sees they're like Luke and his crew are embracing that there shouldn't be a division, that they consider they're the children of the gods as well. I think really is something powerful for Percy to check himself about. And the other thing that is hugely, hugely powerful, I think, is about the gods play games with them, and they control
wall
information.
Off the truth.
Yeah.
Chiron.
And that's a huge, I feel like series long thing that gets Percy to where he's ultimately going to realize that, they don't need to be pawns. in
Yeah.
the game, that they have agency and they have a choice.
Oh,
Yeah.
I really like that. Is very helpful for me, like, because we've been talking a lot about Thalia. We like, first of all, Titan's Curse is our favorite book, so everything we keep going from like, okay, yes, well, Titan's Curse, like, okay, yes, well, Allison Sims, she basically just sets us up for Zoe Nightshade, like, great, and like all of this like set up for Thalia, and the fact that like in this season or in this episode, it really feels like Luke and Annabeth are playing chess, and their piece is Thalia, and they're like trying to say like, you should join me because Thalia, you should join me because Thalia. And that next season or next book, because we don't know exactly what the vibes will be, but for us, next book is like Thalia and Luke playing chess with Annabeth and saying, I'm protecting her, like whatever. And so there's this like looming sense of this girl, which of course sets us up so brilliantly to see her next episode. But the idea of like that Thalia, like that is the one linchpin for Annabeth in like what her decision is. This is a question that we asked this question of the cast a lot in season 1, like what would it take for you to join Luke? What is the thing that you would need to hear or know? And then for season 2, I think we asked Rick and we asked Dan, John, and Craig as well, like what would it take for the whole question was, we know that what it would take for Percy to join Luke is if Annabeth said that was the right thing to do, because he trusts her like more than anything. If Annabeth said it, he'd be like, well, I guess so. But so the question is then, what would it take for Annabeth to join Luke? And that answer is almost certainly Thalia. So how you get to the point of balancing why the hell Thalia wouldn't choose Luke becomes this like question we can't wait to see you guys answer. But also like we were talking about it when we were talking about this episode and saying like, well, maybe that it's not that black and white, and that it's not so much that Thalia chooses the Olympians when she chooses the hunters, but it's more so that she's choosing a secret third choice, which is not to choose. And like, I like the idea that at the end of the series, Percy doesn't truly choose the Olympians, that he decides I'm not a pawn of either side, and that I am standing up and I'm advocating for my own version of the future. That, like what you just said, just really answered that question for me that I have been struggling with for the past couple weeks, like spiraling out about how are we going to get to the end of this series and choose between these two sides. There doesn't just have to be two sides.
Yeah, and that's kind of the cool thing about it too, is like, sometimes decisions that seem very black and white, there's a sneaky third choice.
Yeah. There is, related to that though, one of the things that we were remarking on in this episode was the like mirrored framing, particularly with Percy and Luke, where there's this like they say the exact same line about to both like introduce and sort of close out the like main rising action of the episode, where Percy is like, we're gonna go find Luke because we can end the war tonight, and then Luke's closing pitch to him is the exact same. We're going to end the war tonight because you're going to join me, and because we've had this whole conversation journey together. And at the moment, we were both like, that's so satisfying. But also, we were talking about how, I guess, to the point that is made in the actual dialogue in the first episode, how easy it would be for that to sound really trite and to have this like binary or the two sides of the same coin presentation feel like overworked, overdone, like you're being hammered over the head with it. Were there conversations, or like how did you feel like you were able to achieve that balance of making this point and making it clearly, but also leaving the audience feeling like it wasn't, I guess, inevitable, or it wasn't too
Specific,
I guess obvious or specific. Yeah, when we get that, like it feels like a payoff.
Because it did.
Yeah.
We were like fist pumping the air.
Oh, amazing. My God. Yeah. I mean, I love bookending an episode. I mean, I like it as a device.
Yeah.
And I like that. I love, like, it's like in Daredevil season 1, where Daredevil and Kingpin, they had the same goal. They wanted to make Hell's Kitchen a better place to be. They just had very different ways about going about it, And so that's, I think, is always makes for great hero / villain stories is when they are similar, where they sort of have a very similar goal, but just very different ways of achieving it, But also the idea too is like, we wanted Percy to feel a little bit torn, or just momentarily torn. Because there was early discussions about this were about like sowing the seeds of doubt for Percy in terms of which side of this he is on.
Yes.
But I think we pulled back on that a bit because ultimately we decided that he really, he should be very firm in which side he's on, but that using the exact same words, and that making that offer to him, I think what it's really meant to do is drive home this point about Chiron fearing that he could be a weapon and understanding, having existed for so long and seeing, the wars between the Titans and the Olympians and seeing how power can corrupt. That even though, and I think that the nuance of this Percy doesn't understand yet in this episode, but that, having that kind of power can change the best of us.
Definitely. Especially if they're literally overtaking your body and taking over your consciousness.
Yeah.
Tougherino. Tough. We only have a couple minutes left, and we have to ask you our thesis closing questions. But before we do that, I want to ask if there's anything that you really wanted to cover that you weren't able to, since this is your first time talking about this episode with us, with the fandom, if there's anything you wanted to say or talk about before we ask you a specific question.
Honestly, my hidden agenda was to get in my stuff about Harry Hamlin and Prince Amadalia. And I'm so happy that I worked that into the conversation. So
you seamlessly too, absolutely seamlessly. So I don't know if anyone has told this to you before. I didn't mention it. Maybe I should have. So we're a Percabeth specific podcast. We started this podcast over 5 years ago because we were rereading the books during COVID lockdown, and we were like, wait, there's even better than we remember them. We read them together as kids. And in particular, this relationship between Percy and Annabeth is so spectacular, never been done before, unique to the Riordan verse, something we never got to see in other media growing up. And it means so much to us. And Percabeth might be the greatest love story ever told. So we started this podcast and we started asking ourselves and asking other people, do you believe Percabeth is the greatest love story ever told? If so, why? And if not, what is your version of the greatest love story ever told? So we have to ask you, do you believe Percabeth is the greatest love story ever told?
I am going to say it's in the top 5.
Hell yeah. I'll take it.
And you haven't heard what else is in the top 5 though. No.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Well, a few of the other, I'm a big dork. So I'm going to say Anakin and Amadalia, that is a huge, because look, this guy, walked away from the Force to try to save his wife. That is, to me, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's Jack and Rose from Titanic. Beautiful
James Cameron
story. Yeah. But then again, I also put into that list Dracula and Mina. This guy, he walked away from God. He forsaken God because God took his one love from him. Which I think is very powerful.
I'm feeling the better question to ask you is, do you think Thalia and Luke are the greatest love story ever told, based on what you're telling me about these other comparisons? That might be a better balance.
I don't know. Maybe I'm telling you way more about, I have very messed up ideas about what love should look like.
That sacrifice that also Luke, Charlie has literally told us that his biggest inspo for Luke is Anakin. I love the idea that Luke watches Thalia turn into a tree and get cursed forever, and that's his final straw. And he's like, well, I'm burning it all down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why he does all of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he thinks he can save her.
But then he ultimately sacrifices everything in the end for Annabeth as well. So
yeah, like Anakin.
Like Anakin.
So,
yeah.
But there is something to be said for love stories that are healthy and don't involve forsaking your religion or But yeah, I mean, there's something. My last one is Edward and Bella. I love Edward and Bella.
I love that you said that.
Look, think what you will about those books. I, as a grown-ass woman, tore through them and just had felt so many things.
I also just rewatched all the movies in order for the first time in my life, and I had the best experience. I was living. When they played 1,000 Years by Christina Perri, I was like, this is the greatest song ever written. I was sobbing in that wedding scene. I was like, what? Who am I? This is really affecting me.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe we're all admitting this on a podcast.
It took many years, but
out there all of this.
Yeah, now the internet knows. I'm an Edward sympathizer.
Look, but these are, love stories that they don't go anywhere. They stick with people. They mean things. They make us feel things. And, I definitely, Percy and Annabeth are, a beautiful, amazing, powerful love story. So, I would definitely say.
And the contribution of this episode to that story is phenomenal. We were really so deeply enjoying watching them work through the Boone situation, watching Percy do all of this for any span the whole gamut, from trying to get her to enjoy cruise ship activities to also saying essentially, I trust you with the fate of the sole knowledge of my fate, and I'll just let you do what needs to be done with that. So we really enjoyed being able to work through this episode and talk about all of the delicious Percy and Annabeth moments that it gave us.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I really hope that as we journey through the rest of this season and then into season 3, that maybe we turn from being a Percabeth podcast into being a ThaLuke podcast. I honestly see it happening.
Or maybe that's the content you wall off for this is the Patreon bonus podcast.
Wait, that is such a good idea.
Yeah.
That is such a good idea.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hey.
Well, is there anything, would you like to tell people where to find you on the internet or anything like that? We have many guests who say, no, pass.
Or things
I am on the Instagram. I very rarely post anything except for around Halloween time. I watch a horror movie, 31 horror movies in October, and I just post what those are. Otherwise, I'm a lurker. I think I am at TBDubs. So if you want to see what I watched this year, check me out. Otherwise, I have nothing. Yeah.
We will post that information in our show notes. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. It means a lot to be even that you're here just means a lot that you respect the fans enough to have this conversation, and we don't take that lightly. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. And thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye, all.